are here with Richard for MyNFTe. Richard, I'm very excited to have you on the podcast. We've known each other for years. We met in person a couple years ago, so thank you for coming on, and I'm excited to dive into your business.
Absolutely, Ethan. No, it's a pleasure. Great to reconnect. And of course, we both had some things rumbling, and I appreciate you bringing me on the podcast. So thanks.
Of course, man. So, can you kind of dive into what does NFT do? Just kind of give like a breakdown of the business and what you guys specialize in.
Absolutely. So it's been an evolution over the past couple years. We started roughly in 2022, and it birthed from the idea that it still holds true today. But the idea was helping our customers, clients, supporters, fans, essentially helping them create things out of their IP. So what does that mean? In the NFT space, it started out people, acquiring, investing in these different art pieces, PFPs or profile picture art. And then ultimately, as we know how the space has gone, is ebbs and flows. Some are still alive, some aren't. It's a dot com era all over again. However, our goal was to help people take their IP and create something of it. Some of the best use cases today of IP creation or branding can be seen in people taking that IP, creating a storefront out of it, a brick and mortar. There's a couple restaurants that are out there that are using their NFT IP. There's a couple of services businesses that are using their IP. But the idea is the difference between the people that um, you know found their own direction for that IP versus sitting around and waiting was they went out and they did something with something that they owned versus sitting around. So our goal was to create an easy to use platform to enable people to create more with their IP. Today, fast forward, we're actually doing a lot more locally. So we're taking my personal background from software, marketing, apparel. These are all things I've done in the past personally for myself. And now I'm providing it to our clients, our customers, as almost like a managed service. So merchandising and helping you brand your IP, whether that's a business logo, it's a digital IP, you name it, helping you create engaging ways for your customers or clients, whoever, to now support you through your merchandise. But at the end of the day, it ends up being a little bit of marketing as well.
Love it. And can you kind of dive into how does, let's say like a restaurant, for example, they put out branded merchandise. How does that help them build a relationship with their customer?
Yeah, so that was something that I actually ended up taking a deeper dive into just to study, be like, okay, does it make sense to do this? Yes, I've done it, but what are these local businesses potentially missing out from not having merchandise? And that is a key. Most of them want to do it, but they don't have the time, resources, don't know where to start. Maybe they're working more locally and there's a minimum order, and that tends to be sometimes more like expensive for them, like with large upfront costs to get into it. But they are missing out on marketing, not just marketing, but potential creating additional revenue stream. But I think just to hit on the marketing side, that is, people that, just about everyone that we were working with today, they have a great name, reputation in our area. And so those are especially the ones we like to work with because they already have those long, loyal customers. They have brand recognition. They're just missing an extra piece that could be an added fuel to their fire. So what we're able to do then is they could come to us and essentially say, hey, we would like to, be a part of your services or be a collaborator as we talk about on our website. So essentially they would work with us. We do the designing, the hosting online, the marketing, as well as the fulfillment. So essentially, depending on whether it's a brick and mortar or more of like a digital brand, for a brick and mortar, like you said, a restaurant, we would then set them up with, a couple designs, pick a couple article of clothing, maybe a mug, maybe some t-shirts. We number one want to get to know who they are, their business, and what are the type of products that would relate most to their customers. So there's a bit of strategy behind it as well. And we don't just, do t-shirts for everyone, unless they really want it. But, we try to find unique ways to connect with their customers while at the same time creating unique designs, sayings, things that are fun, funny, that overall people can relate to to and be like, yeah, this is just screaming me and why I love this brand. And so after we go through the design process, they go through the approvals, essentially letting us know, hey, what they like, what they don't like, how we should maybe edit something. And then finally, they'll have a website with these items loaded on there. And essentially, for brick and mortar, we then create QR codes. So it's up to them how much they want to hold in-house to actually sell. However, regardless of how much they have in-house, they'll at least have this online storefront to now capture these sales. So we'll create some QR codes, we'll create some nice messaging. We even then do a bit of promotional marketing with them as well. So again, this is coming from my background of sales, doing this in the software world and starting out as an engineer and, not the most ideal route, right? Going from engineer to being the sales guy. But over the time, I got to really understand sales methodology and crafting it. And one of the best ways to sell is through storytelling. So a lot of what we do then after we do the designs is now we connect with them, do something like this actually, where we, want to get to know a bit about them, who they are, why they started the business, and then overall use that as promotional content to advertise why you should support local business or why you should support them. And then, so we do a bit of the content creation as well. And then ultimately, we'll have the website out there and they choose to either primarily do it online or have a bit of both online and on site. And then finally, depending on how they choose to partner with us, we then want to keep it fresh. So seasonal drops, seasonal things, designs, Christmas, Halloween, you name it, whatever matches their brand and usually is like maybe the most important season of their business. We want to make sure we're locked up with that and we have fresh new things coming out. That obviously is additional ways for their customers, their supporters, their fans to support them.
Love it. There's a lot that I want to unpack there. The first one being is the revenue generator or the extra uh, revenue stream. I think when a lot of small businesses, especially here, t-shirts, they're like, oh, t-shirts, what we're gonna make $5, $50 off the t-shirts. I think a lot of small businesses underestimate the ability to sell merchandise to the people that love their brand. So can you kind of dive into some of the results that you've seen with your clients and kind of talk about like what is the reality of how much a business can generate with your merchandise or just merchandise in general when they do go down this route?
Absolutely. So I would say we've worked with a couple different brands. Some more so want to just bulk ordering. So they bought a bulk and would, for the most part, they sold some, gave some away. But overall, we don't like to, if I'm being honest, we don't like to necessarily make any promises in terms of how much revenue we would be generating. At the end of the day, we like to under promise, over deliver. But the idea is that through our efforts of telling their story, connecting really unique merchandise designs, and then ultimately, joining forces with them and talking about this, or at least sharing the fact that they have merchandise. The idea is that the way we set it up, they're likely getting more margin than the typical t-shirt. Our prices do tend to be a little higher because we do focus more on quality than quantity. So I think a lot of times when people jump into merchandise, they're looking for, the cheapest way to sell, for lack of better terms, the lowest grade shirt, right? And yes, the margins are very tough. So we rather go with quality, unique designs, and from the angle of, hey, I don't know about you, but there's a lot of brands and things that we've bought because we wanted to support them. So the idea is leaning on that and having quality designs that people are going to be like, wow, this is actually one of my favorite hoodies or my favorite shirts. And they come back to buy more because not only are they buying something that they like to wear, but they're also buying something and supporting a brand, a business that they love. But long story short, I would say like, rough numbers, I think is ideal for any customer that we work with to at least put a figure of a couple $100, even 1,000. It honestly depends on how much they lean into what we're doing, the marketing, as well as talking about the fact that they do have merchandise as well. But yes, at the back end, we're already producing content because guess what? Our goal is to help you sell because that's what keeps us alive. So it's a mutual beneficial relationship, and ultimately my goal is we can help you cover the cost of an employee cost or cover a bill 1 month. That's a win. But again, it's how much effort we are both putting in.
Thank you for that. And you also talked about you not having a minimum order, which I think this is a very interesting aspect because I think especially when it comes to most print shops or most services like that, a lot of businesses come with a minimum order because they're like, hey, it's not worth it for me as a business if I'm not making at least $200 or $500. Why did you guys decide to say we don't care how much you order as a business? We just want to service you no matter the amount of money that you spend with us.
Is a lot of reasons there, and I think a lot of like when we were talking the other day, very similar reasons. At the end of the day, these mom and pop shops, they're usually like they don't know where to start, and my goal is to make it the simplest, easiest barrier to entry as possible. And I've always been that way as a seller by, trade, and just understanding that I want to start with value. I want to drive value first before I'm even requesting anything. It's not always the best business strategy because if you don't have the value, guess what? You're probably not going to see anything. But we trust in ourselves and we know the value that we're going to bring to those customers. So we know that if you partner with us, you're going to see results and you're going to come back for more. But having that minimum order was something that over time I was just hearing from a bunch of our clients or customers. They're saying, yeah, this was a reason, that was a reason. And, there was probably three reasons and one of them had to do with minimum orders. So guess what? Rather than have you have a minimum order of just t-shirts that you're probably going to spend anywhere from $200 to $500 just to have adequate amount there. And then you want hoodies, that cost racks up and next thing you know, you're down two, three, 5,000. Some of them have been down in terms of just buying merchandise and they haven't been able to sell it because guess what? They're too busy trying to focus on selling their main business. Whatever, it was a great idea, but the execution maybe wasn't there. We come in and we execute in terms of buying, in terms of design and helping you sell the merchandise through an avenue that is more supportive. So again, the main reason there was that we wanted to keep it simple and easy for people to join on and give us a shot.
Yeah, I really like, and obviously we agree on this point of helping small businesses, right? That's everything. The local mom and pops have nowhere to go to turn without having minimum orders or fees or commissions or red tape or just things to get in the way of making it harder to succeed as a business owner. So I love how you guys are saying, what can we do to make it easier for the people that might not have the capital, the time, the energy to put forth to succeed in different areas of their business. So I think that's super, super important. Um, you guys also have, and you briefly touched on this, the collaboration type mindset. Can you kind of talk about how your website's structured to really foster this type of collaboration?
Absolutely. So it's again been built and evolved over time, but I think yeah, now it's in a really beautiful place where essentially, once we agree upon sometimes what we'll even do with some of my closer clients that either I know through family friends that have a business, we'll create them a sample site. You actually go on our site today and you'll see some of those samples out there. Those are some of the people going through the process right now, where once they get from the sample, they then get a tag of coming soon. So at that point, we're getting close to finalizing the products we're going to be launching with. We've figured out a price structure. Again, we definitely go more for the premium look, feel items. But then once we get past that, we launch the site. So typically, I would say anywhere from a couple items that are being launched, and yeah, rewind this. What was the main question again? I kind of got on a tangent
No,
there.
you're good. Can you kind of talk about just the collaboration
Oh,
aspect
the collab. That's right. The
of your
collaboration.
business?
Yeah, yeah. So from start to finish, it's a collaborative effort, and I think that's maybe where I was going with this.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
from the point starting their store to figuring out the designs or the items that we're going to be using for the store, putting together like usually what I like to do, especially if it's a more local client, I'll go to their storefront, hang out, just catch the like what are they trying to portray, at their store? What is the mindset? What is the vibe that they're giving off? And then I take that back and I work with the team to essentially come up with these unique ideas that really fit them. And then because we know they're busy, so we take some of that off of them as well. If they have some ideas, fantastic, we'll use those and start with. If not, we'll come up with some unique things, or maybe it's just more playing with the logo and a couple sayings. But we then work with them. We send them some of these mock-ups. They approve them. ask for changes, and then we go back and forth until we land on a couple items that we can then have or host on the store. And then from there, from the promotional items that we'll do in terms of like the videos. So one of our clients, Richland Indoor Golf Tavern, not the greatest golfer in the world, but I enjoy the sport. It's fun, social activity. So we've been there a couple of times. We've actually been taking some promotional takes or clips, getting ready for this launch. We just had one post recently, and then we actually have a longer formed one, which we then sort of coach them up on how to share it or what platforms they have and how best to collaborate with us. So literally from start to finish, it's a collaborative effort. And then on the back end, once we do launch the store with them, we essentially assign, because we have so back to your site layout, we have it laid out in a way. You jump on the site, it talks a little bit about who we are, and then you see our collaborators. They're segmented into three categories: brands, communities, and athletics. So just to give you, so the restaurants, the musicians, the people that have that brand, we consider restaurants and mom and pop shops for the most part brands. And then in communities, you're seeing more of the digital communities, maybe clubs, different local organizations are usually within that community aspect. And then finally, athletics, where my for personal athletics brand, Flight Mode Fitness, which is where my apparel experience comes from back in college, running that business. And then we're actually doing some things with local schools, high schools, and colleges as well. So that's those have been like the main three categories we've been servicing the most to, and so. Okay, so then once we put them into one of those categories, the final step is then assigning their products to the back end. So we would invite them to a back end portal, which helps them in tracking the sales of their items and the payout that they'll be getting monthly. So from that portal, once they sign up, set up, and either PayPal or Stripe, we're able to finance the automatic payments through. So they set up one of those accounts, and then they're able to track every time something sells. They see the customer name, email, and what they purchase, and now they have that information as well without obviously the upfront leg lifting of of setting everything up themselves and knowing how to create a website or a apparel site where they actually don't need inventory.
I now want to dive into, you mentioned earlier that you had this transition from being a engineer to then becoming a salesman, entrepreneur slash business owner, that kind of journey. I really want you to dive into what that internal growth transition was like for you, coming from an engineer, maybe not having any sales skills, maybe not being comfortable being in front of people. Like, can you kind of talk about what's it like going from being a like engineer to having to sell yourself, sell your business, all that type of stuff?
Great question, and I do enjoy actually sharing the story because it was just like everything. It's been a lesson. It was not perfect. It was ugly at times, but through just perseverance and just believing yourself mindset, you learn a lot through those gray areas, trying to find the light. But so I would say. It started out actually studied accounting and management information systems at college. So how I even landed an engineering role is quite funny. But the transformation that needed to happen personally was number one, a willingness to do it. Like I set myself like I started out as an engineer, and I've had some people within the company that essentially introduced me to more technical sales role. At the time, I was excited by the opportunity of it. Yes, it was a little more lucrative, but at that age, I got the opportunity to travel more for work. I got the opportunity to see a different lens of how the software business worked. And so I took that as a great opportunity to, number one, just travel more because I didn't mind getting out. But the fact was, I could still be technical and sort of be the wingman of the salesperson at the time. And then the journey just kept getting more where I sort of dove into the methodology of selling. I think it was a book, Fanatical Selling by Jeff, I can't remember his last name, but that book just really like peeled back the layers and made me realize that, hey, I want to continue to, because I went from engineer where it was 100% salary to essentially commission and salary. And then to make it even better, I said, you know what? I want even more commission. But that wasn't the reason why. I just saw a gap in the sales process. and it was a technical product. And I felt that, maybe if I was the first person someone would talk with, I could maybe smoothen out the process of actually getting that sale, being a bit more technically sound. So I took the risk. Again, I read a couple books that got me really excited about the opportunity and the fact that you could have a bit more even control of your future. One of my biggest things as an engineer is that I would get all my stuff done, and I was usually the one working on side projects, doing our monthly sprints. And so I was like, okay, well, what if I just put all that into a role where I already love the product, I love talking to people about it. People had told me in the past that my enthusiasm is what's selling it. And so I was like, you know what, let me do it. And I, bet on myself. But where the mindset really like, because most people would have quit. Did not see success early. Um, I remember my one manager, he told me it's going to take 9 months to build a pipeline. I said, or to just not only build a pipeline, but also to like make my first deal. And I was like, no way, I'm going to sell this thing like tomorrow. It took me roughly 9 months to exactly do it. But during that time, let's just say that sometimes I didn't necessarily agree with the different sales tactics that were done. And I told myself I would never be that sales guy. But I found myself in the role being that sales guy at times and leaving calls like feeling really icky, not great. Like, why did I just say that? It just came out of nowhere, It was just like, whoa. You get too focused on the sale and not the person and the relationship sometimes, and you lose your way. But over the time, I started to realize I was losing my way a bit and not focusing on what kept me, enthusiastic, which was the product and helping people, helping serve people, like the business today. And finally, I think I got back to just being uniquely me, the only person I can be. And that is over time, I wasn't necessarily the hard close type of guy. I'm not gonna lie, I was definitely more of like the customer service sales guy, which, is not a good thing if you're talking to a manager. But over time, that's just who I was. I built a relationship, and when I needed that favor and I asked for it, they usually were willing to do it. So I was able to finally see success there. Made it to a couple fancy trips they have corporately, and yeah. But it was definitely a bit of a mindset shift to number one, want it. Number two, sort of educate myself and really like become accountable of that craft. And then number three, understand how to execute and understand who I was and sticking true to that.
I love that. Um, I have one more question for you.
Sorry, I'm
If
I'm, I'm very long-winded with
no,
these.
no, no, dude, this is great because this gives people more insight, right? Especially transitioning from the 9 to 5 type of job to a entrepreneur, sales, business owner, that type of segment where you're on commission, even if you don't own your own business. That is a very scary situation, and it's very. I wouldn't even say scary. It's very uncomfortable because, like you mentioned, you have to go 9 months with a lot of uncertainty. Am I going to make my own uh, like money? And not only that, but am I fit to do it? Like, is this what I'm supposed to do? Do I have the skills that can do it? Am I cut out to do this job? So can you kind of talk about like what that process was like? You mentioned that you wanted to quit early on that sales job because you weren't making money right away, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. Of like, it's not working out. Is it me? Is it the process? Am I not doing something right? So can you kind of just like unpack what that 9 months was like for you, and then kind of how you kept yourself going?
Yeah, perseverance and having good people around me. So I had a lot of good mentors. I had a lot of good leaders that mentored me and just gave me advice. I was the type to, it was funny because in engineering, I was the type to kind of sit back and try to figure it out first before I went for help. But I think in sales, since it was such a new avenue, I mean, it's not really something you go out there and look, yeah, there are podcasts, things like that. But I just I knew of some of the best sellers of the company, and I really like, and a lot of them I had built a relationship with. So I went talked with them. Anytime I ran into a hurdle, I'd be like, hey, how would you have navigated this? But overall, I would say like just the switch itself, and I'm still learning to this day how best to navigate it. But I think just leaning into it, finding the right resources that are credible, and then finding your own craft and within that. But I mean, going from that to running a business is definitely another another story in itself. But overall, I think it's just a willingness and belief in myself, and knowing that if I can find something that is valuable to others, and essentially taking my model of who I am and serving, and now creating a business around that over through things I already know how to do that others do not, and that I can provide for them. So I think in terms of just the mindset of finding your niche or business, really focus on serving, focus on value, and I think you can't go wrong. Because at the end of the day, people will then be like, "Hey, how do I pay you?" You know?
Yes. Yes, providing value, I think, is the number one thing because then if you provide enough value, that person's going to be like, I need to do something for him. I need to help him out. Or you get more tickets, right? So now you can go ask for more favors in the future, especially if you're providing, that consistent value.
Yeah, and something I just wanted to share. It's actually a funny story, but early on, making that transition into like the main seller, because most people in that role, they went through almost like a training process where they were first that cold caller, calling people, be like business development representative, usually they call, and then they went more into like an inside sales representative role, and then finally an account or a field salesperson. So most of the people ahead of me had done this route before, but I went from engineer to technical seller to sales guy. And so there was like one or two other people in the company that had done a similar route. So definitely they were at my corner as well. But one thing I told myself was like, all right, let me at least simulate going through that path. So in my training becoming the sales rep, I was never told to do this, but I got a leads list and I just started calling. Started calling one day. And one night, it was probably like 6:30. I had gotten, I think this was the first time. I called and then randomly someone finally picked up and I just froze. I didn't know what to do. I just shut the phone. I was just like, I don't know what to do here. You weren't supposed to pick up. I was just supposed to make myself feel good about calling right now. I'm putting in work, right? But it was one of those moments that was like, all right, Richard, you're either doing this because you're just cranking out numbers, or doing this because you want to actually l- build a craft, build a skill set, and try to create some leads. So that was just a funny story, but it was moments like that that I think hopefully can help people. Is like, hey, you're gonna fail, it's okay, but as long as you feel like this is the right path for you, keep pushing.
Great advice. That's a great story because I think a lot of people in the beginning, especially cold calling, because we all know it sucks. In the beginning, you're like, ah, here we go. So I think a
Right?
lot of people will definitely feel that story for sure.
Yeah, and then over time, next thing you know, you're having hour-long conversation with strangers because it's just so natural. Because that's literally where it's gotten to the point where I can pretty much just pick up a phone and call anyone, but it didn't start that way. So anyway,
I love it. No, man, that's great. One more question for you, and I think we both really sit in this realm of helping small businesses. We want to help small businesses grow. We want to fill the gap, and we just want to make it easier for them. So, why did you decide to partner with us and offer the discounts?
might be getting a little bit of lag here, so I wanted to pause. But number one, it was you, you, and then obviously the business model and how again it was to me it was a perfect pairing. Why I was like, oh, for sure. How do we sign up to be able to offer this to your on your platform? And I just love the methodology behind the platform itself. Like you said, it's very similar to lower barrier of entry, leading with value, and how can we help over, hey, how can we extract? And that was some of the toughest things, like from the different businesses I've had, talking to business owners and learning about the junk of things that I've had to deal with in the past. And if I could be that refreshing breath of air, then I wanted to be that. And so, yeah, to me, at times it was definitely leading with value. At times, yeah, most cutthroat business people would say that's not the right way to do it. But the idea is also we're building our credibility, we're building our brand as well. So like partnering with you all just made sense. It's like it's an opportunity for us to number one put something out there again, continue to lead with value, come shop with us for 5% off, support the various brands that we're currently hosting, um, and then it actually gives us visibility into the different people you're working with. So I appreciate you for that. We've had two great, well, myself, you made the introduction, but I've had two great conversations with people that are also part of the Digi discount platform. And it's just a great way to network. It's a great way to build your overall, professional portfolio of people you know. At the end of the day, your network is your net worth. And so, any chance I have to just connect with like-minded people and be a part of a platform and a bit of the community you're building, I was like, it was to me a no-brainer. And again, you made it easy to join.
Thank you for that, Richard. We appreciate the kind words. Um, those are the questions I have for you. How can people find you, and what is one thing you want to leave people with?
Ooh, okay. So they can find me most active these days, not as much active on X as I used to be or Twitter. But my handle personally is at, well, full name Richard Samari Jr. You can find me on Facebook. But business wise, or it's MyNFTe. So it's at MyNFTe on X, and then everything else I believe we were able to capture the at my NFTE by itself. So you can find us on just about every platform as that, and you can find me LinkedIn, Facebook, Richard Samir Jr.
What do you want to leave people with?
I think probably the story that I shared about that transition from engineer to sales to business owner. That the road is not going to be easy. I can tell you that. But literally, there's so much our minds can do. The brain is a powerful tool, and I think if you just lean in to that and your belief and surround yourself with the right people, I promise you, it may not it may take longer than you imagine, but things will specifically start to fall into place, and just be aware of those good things, those little victories that are happening around you. And that's what I would like to leave them with, because over time they will stack.
Consistency is everything. Even if you don't see something happening, there is something happening. So,
Absolutely.
thank you for sharing this, Richard. Thank you for coming on the podcast. It was a pleasure to not only obviously reconnect after years of talking, but having you share your story, your journey. I'm sure people are going to be able to relate, especially to the transition that you made to now business owner. So, thank you for coming on the podcast, man. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Easton. Pleasure as well.